just arrived in Tel Aviv. We're here on the beach. It's really nice. It's deceptively nice because 20 miles that way is the West Bank, which Israel has been occupying since 1967. And the reason we're interested in the West Bank is because the other thing that Israel has been doing there is building settlements. So we're going to head over there and find out what that's like. Israel conquered the West Bank and East Jerusalem in 1967 after 3 Arab nations battled the newly minted Jewish state in the Six Days War. Israel was only 20 years old at the time, and its victory was hailed as a David versus Goliath triumph. A lot of waters passed under the bridge since then, and what was supposed to have been a temporary occupation of the Palestinian territories has turned into 4.5 decades of misery for the Arab residents in the West Bank. Aside from the fact that the West Bank is crisscrossed with barbed wire, walls, and military checkpoints, over 300,000 Israelis have taken it upon themselves to settle what was supposed to be the future Palestinian state. According to international law, the settlements are totally illegal. They represent a colonization of the lands that are slated for handover to the Palestinians under an agreement that both Israel and the Palestinians signed in 1993. As a result, the peace process has ground to a halt, and the much-lauded two-state solution is looking less likely than ever before. I wanted to find out who the settlers were and what motivated them to pick up sticks and move across the Green Line to become the most notorious squatters the world has ever known.
Maybe that's what's going through their minds.
I discovered that it was easy for a settler to get a gun license in the West Bank. All they had to do was qualify at a shooting range like this one. But Palestinians living in the same area are never packing because Israel doesn't allow it. It turned out our trainer Steve was himself a settler who'd moved into the West Bank from South Africa. When we arrived at his settlement, I was surprised to see it look more like an American suburb than an outpost in a hostile territory. Right. So you're saying your settlement is right on the right here, and some fields that are used by Palestinians are the left. Are there any sort of confrontations between the people working in these fields and people from your settlement?
Not often. Occasionally I've been called in to what we call, it's called a khadira, that's an infiltration. Mm-hmm. I've caught on a few occasions Arabs that have infiltrated the settlement. They've come to steal. In my mind also, I think it's quite a clever way for them to gather information, see how quickly we react. They're taking all this information in, so we've got to be really alert.
Do you ever worry about your kids that they could get hurt?
I think every parent worries about their kids, man.
But do you ever question your decision to bring them out here in such close proximity to people who aren't very happy with your presence?
No. I mean, like, I'll tell you,
it's not something you think about.
It's not something I think about.
It turns out the Israeli state has given his settlement, and many others like it, its full backing. But like most settlements, it hadn't started out this way. It was once an encampment that was considered illegal, even by Israel. But over the years, the settlers have learned that if they squat a site in the West Bank long enough, Israel will give them its approval, its infrastructure, and its security. You don't feel that coming here would provoke your Arab neighbors, though, into violence?
I don't see why it should. Look, again, what I'm saying is that I don't think it's right taking other people's land. I don't think it's right for me to... These guys are working hard. They've been working these fields now for maybe 2 generations.
Yeah.
But you should just know that's maximum. When we're talking about Palestinian people, we're maximum talking about maybe 1.5 to 2 generations.
Yeah.
The Jewish people have been here for 5,000 years. This dates back another, if you look on there, I think it's 3,000 years ago. This was active and used. We're not just a fabrication that this is, oh, we want this place. You know, I understand that they were here for whatever reasons. We were exiled out of Israel, but you know, we were given the opportunity to come back.
Now, this was an incredible fabrication on Steve's part. The notion that the Palestinians had only lived on this land for 2 generations was totally false. But the idea that Jews had a historic claim to the West Bank's territories that trumped any Palestinian claims was one I'd hear over and over in the next few days, and turned out to be a major part of the settler ideology that ran directly counter to the two-state solution plan. It's Friday morning in Tel Aviv. We're going to the West Bank where it's Land Day and all of Palestine celebrates their land, but it's also an occasion when they clash with Israeli troops. So we're going to see what that vibe is like. This is the Kalandia checkpoint. There's tons of soldiers and police here today because they're expecting a confrontation with the Palestinian demonstrators. We're going across the checkpoint while we can because once the trouble starts, they're going to shut it down. Oh man, not another one. You got to be kidding me. Okay, now I'm pretty sure we're here. 3 hours after we set out from Tel Aviv, we were finally in the seat of the Palestinian Authority, Ramallah. We've seen a lot of settlers and we've seen their settlements and their homes, but we really haven't got the Palestinian perspective at all. And apparently the Palestinians are often attacked by settlers, so we've come to this town, Asir al-Qiblia, to get their perspective on things. This is the end of the road in this Palestinian town, so these houses here are the ones that are closest to the Jewish settlement up the hill, and they face the brunt of the attacks when the settlers come down throwing stones. And the owners of some of these houses are telling us that the Israeli army doesn't do anything about it.
هون كانت لك النار
Rubber bullets?
هون هي أثرت لك النار من اعتداءات المستوطنين. كان ينزلوا المستوطنين يكشفوا الشبابيك القزاز. فآخر فترة قبل شهرين بالضبط أجت مؤسسة فرنسية ووضعت الشبك هذا حتى إنه يحمي بيوتنا من الإحجار ومن القزاز اللي بيرموا علينا على البيت. فالوضع هسه يعني الكل بشعر بأمان بس مش الأمان الكامل، أمان شيء بسيط يعني.
He showed us videos he'd taken himself of the settler attacks, where you could see youths come down from the settlement above the village to throw stones.
بس على فلسطينيين.
The worst thing about it was that they were accompanied by the Israeli army, who were supposedly there to separate the two groups, but were in fact doing nothing to stop the settler attack.
شوف الجيش شو بيعمل لهم. طلع الجيش. لا عشان الجيش.
A few weeks after we visited Asira al-Qiblia, the settler attacks resumed. But this time, 2 Palestinian villagers who were throwing stones and approaching Jewish youths were shot by the settlers with live ammunition during 2 separate attacks. Both times, the Israeli army did nothing to restrain the settlers. Fortunately, though, both men survived.
الجيش يعني بينزل المستوطنين، الجيش بيوقف والمستوطنين بيضربوا علينا أحجار. في النهاية نطلع احنا اللي ظالمين هون.
بفكر انه الصبي الصغير هذا شو مسوي له؟ ولد صغير نايم في بيته الساعة 12 ربع شو مسوي للمستوطن هذا؟ فبيجوا يقولوا ان احنا ناس في عصيرة ارهابيين، لا مش احنا الارهابيين، هم مصدر الارهاب نفسه.
The situation was obviously very tense and very dangerous. It's easy to get bogged down in the legal details of the status of each individual settlement. But the important thing to remember is that while some sites face the chopping block, the total number of settlers in the West Bank has grown from just 12,000 in the early 80s to over 300,000 today. And that figure doesn't even include a further 200,000 Israelis living in East Jerusalem, according to the activist group Peace Now. Many have begun asking themselves if it's even possible for a Palestinian state to emerge from a territory crisscrossed with Jewish settlements. A couple of miles down the road from Migron, just across a small valley, we saw a shack with a couple of teenagers poking their head out of the door to see who we were. It turned out that the shanty town of One was yet another unauthorized outpost. The place isn't marked on any map, but already it's been demolished and rebuilt a few times over. These kids were without any adult supervision. They told me they'd named the place Strength of Zion. Wow, it's really basic. I mean, there's not even a floor. It's just the grass here. You've got holes in the roof. I mean, it's rained today.
They started it now. We need to fix it up. The police came, broke down. They cut all our electricity. They broke down the water. Now we need to start building. Every time they break, we build again. We're going to build and not be afraid of building.
This has been totally incredible. This is the freshest, most radical outpost that we've visited so far. The crazy thing about it is that the more you talk to these guys, the more somebody tells you that God has given them this land, that there's no two ways around it, you kind of start to believe them and get to the point where you think a peaceful settlement is almost impossible. With so many settlements being built up on the future territory of the Palestinian state, you start to wonder if Israel is working to make the two-state solution a reality, or if it's just telling the international community what it wants to hear. The more Israelis move to the West Bank, the less viable a Palestinian state seems to be. So the real question becomes whether Palestinians will end up citizens of a greater Israel with equal rights, or if they face a permanent regime of occupation.
I hope there will be war. I hope there will be war. Because we are just playing.
Israelis and Palestinians both claim this land. Scattered across it, more than 100 settlements with nearly 500,000 Israelis. Among them, a group of Afrikaners from South Africa, all far from home, all converts to Judaism.
In 1998, I was decorating the Christmas tree. And as I was doing it, I was praying and I said to Hashem, what is this all about? And I was shocked. I was totally shocked when I discovered that it was actually a pagan feast. And I burned the Christmas tree, and that was the start. That was really the start.
Ronel and Johan were brought up in the Dutch Reformed Church in the East Rand. There was little in their background to suggest they'd leave their church and South Africa. They say they asked questions of Christianity and didn't find answers.
When she came with these crazy ideas about the Torah and the Shabbat and the feasts, I said to her, you know what? You are wrong, and the biggest mistake I ever did was to say, I will prove it to you. Because by saying I would prove that she's wrong, I had to study the word. And then after 2 weeks, I came to her and I said, you know, you're not even right, but you only got half of it.
There's just so much wisdom in the Jewish festivals that we keep. It makes a lot of sense. It's like every year going through a cycle where you search yourself.
Yael Shareth was known as Christelle Peterson until the day she converted to Judaism in Cape Town after 2 years of study, while Johan and Ronel began their conversion at home in Krugersdorp, but left for Israel before it was complete. They still don't qualify for Israeli passports, as only Jews are granted automatic citizenship under the law of return. So every 3 months they have to leave the country to renew their visas. In many ways, they say, they have renewed their lives.
For me to stop watching rugby on a Shabbat, I mean, I loved rugby. I lived for it. Now, if you ask me, I haven't got a clue who's playing when they're playing. As important as that was to me, it was my life, so unimportant it is now. It's amazing. You know, we would love to say maybe there's some Jewish blood way back, but I don't think it's that. I think it's our upbringing. Generally, the Afrikaner people, they are generally more religious people. And I think that is why they are more searching.
The search ended in Israel.
How can you be a Jew and not live in Israel? That's my whole heart. This is the place to be a Jew. The time of exile is over.
They chose the settlement of Susia because it offered them the life they sought, Orthodox and Zionist. Archaeological findings date Jewish life here back to 136 AD. In 1984, a group of Israelis found a new settlement. Today, 120 religious families live here.
This area, it has so much history and it makes it very real to you.
I don't have to talk about does it feel. I know it's Holy Land, and that is why I love working in the land. I love building up the country. I know it's for my people. It's for the people of Israel, and we are the people.
Jacob Talja, real name Jacobus Johannes Taljard, grew up on a farm in South Africa where his father was a preacher. Despite this, he converted to Judaism and helped 74 members of his family to follow.
This is the life that I like. So I like doing it, so that's why I'm doing it.
Having farmed in South Africa, it made sense to do the same in Israel. The farm is leased from the government. Talja imports sheep from South Africa, making him not only the only Afrikaner farmer in Israel, but the only one who speaks Afrikaans to his flock.
For me, it's the easiest language still is Afrikaans. So I'm talking with them Afrikaans. That white dog there, his name is Spook.
But away from this pastoral paradise, there is bitter conflict. Almost every week there are confrontations between the settlers here and the Palestinians living nearby. It's the legacy of the War of 1948. Legend has it that Israel's defense minister Moshe Dayan picked up one of his daughter's green pencils and drew a line on the map that hence divided Palestinian and Jewish land. For 19 years, the so-called Green Line marked the border until the 1967 Six-Day War, when Israel captured the territories west of the line. Right in the middle of this dispute are the Afrikaners of Susia.
I'm not really interested in where the Green Line used to be or where it is going.
Nasser Nawaja does have a claim. He can trace his ancestry back more than 800 years here and insists that the land Jacob Talja is farming belongs to his family.
يعني من جنوب أفريقيا بيجي مستوطن يعني يعقوب داليا بيجي وبسكن في أراضينا. يعني يعقوب داليا من المحزن جدا إنه من جنوب أفريقيا بيجي يسوي يعني اللي صار كله في جنوب أفريقيا بيجي يطبقه في الفلسطينيين.
Nasser lived here until 11 years ago.
طبعا أنا بتذكر من الحكايات أمي وأبوي شو قالوا لأني كنت صغير جدا. طبعا هي أول شيء الحكومة الإسرائيلية أعلنتها منطقة أثرية في 86 عملت جدار هدمت كل البيوت وسكرت كل الكهوف الموجودة.
The families moved to nearby land, but the army and settlers are pressurizing them to leave. A few weeks ago, settlers bulldozed his well and chopped down his olive trees.
هاي أراضينا وتعلمنا أول مرة إحنا من منطقة القريتين 48 53 بعدين ثاني مرة 86 كنا على أمل إن نرجع لمناطقنا بس ما رجعنا.
He can say what he wants because he's an Arab, but he can't prove nothing because there is nothing.
He also says he's the only one with papers for this land.
Nawaja didn't even have the paper, excuse for the expression, to wipe his backside.
There are tough times ahead for the fledgling Palestinian state. Turmoil in which these Afrikaners from South Africa, no strangers to bitter feuds over land, will occupy uncomfortable front seats.